Hello, I'm Nick Caldas. The Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide was established in July 2021 after then Prime Minister Morrison bowed to mounting political pressure following a hard-fought and sustained campaign by the brave families of Australian veterans who had taken their own lives. Every death by suicide is tragic. For every life lost, there are family, friends, colleagues and whole communities flooded by grief and anger. And there is an overrepresentation of defence and veteran deaths by suicide in this country. The numbers are heartbreaking. At least 1,677 of Australia's finest were lost to suicide between 1997 to 2021. However, we estimate the true number of preventable deaths to be upwards of 3,000. And the needless loss of life continues today. On average, there have been 3 deaths by suicide each fortnight over the past decade. Over the last 3 years, this Royal Commission has left no stone unturned as we've examined the cultural and systemic issues contributing to this national tragedy. It's been a complex task in a complex environment dealing with a complex issue, but one we've been incredibly privileged to undertake. We've held 12 public hearings comprising 346 witnesses. We have issued compulsory notices and received more than 3 million pages of information in response. We've hosted close to 900 private sessions or private hearings. We've received almost 5,900 submissions, and we have visited Navy, Army and Air Force bases nationwide to hear firsthand from our service personnel about the opportunities and challenges of life in our military. As we prepare to hand down our final report, we're buoyed by the government's response to our interim report, overhauling the complex legislation governing veterans' entitlements and resourcing to the Department of Veteran Affairs to clear the backlog of unallocated claims. The voice of lived experience has been at the heart of this commission. It's been the deeply personal, often harrowing experiences shared in submissions, private sessions and at public hearings that have shone a bright light in dark places. We've been inspired by the tremendous strength and resilience, knowledge and resourcefulness of those within the defence and veteran community who have contributed to our important work. Let's look back now at some of the key moments from this landmark inquiry.
5 mothers whose sons took their own lives after leaving the Australian Defence Force have shared their heartbreaking stories at New South Wales Parliament. They're calling for a Royal Commission into the suicide of veterans.
We just go through day by day trying to get something done about it and trying just to cope on our own.
From the moment that my son passed away, I realised that I was not going to get any respect from the ADF for my son.
My son was still serving, recognised that his mental health was spiralling.
We're all here being the voices of our sons because they're not here.
He was born on Armistice Day. How ironic to die on Anzac Day. It wasn't a coincidence. Brad chose that day to prove a point.
Anthony Albanese has declared the issue of veteran suicides a crisis.
There are too many kids who've lost their mum and dad. Too many mum and dads who've lost their sons and daughters.
Parliament has united to try and force the Prime Minister to establish a Royal Commission.
MPs and senators combined to push the government towards a Royal Commission into veteran suicides against its preferred path of a permanent independent commissioner.
And the black hole in my heart for my 10 mates that have died.
I think there is a perception in the community and that a Royal Commission provides that acknowledgement that I think families are seeking, and I acknowledge that. And secondly, I provide that process, I think, for healing.
I would love to show that we saved one life.
Her petition for a Royal Commission with 400,000 signatures paying off.
There's some breaking news now. It's understood the Prime Minister will today announce a Royal Commission into veteran suicide.
It'll examine all aspects of service in the Australian Defence Force. This inquiry has been a long time coming, hasn't it?
Good morning, Carl. Yeah, it follows a long fight by former soldiers and families of veterans who have taken their own lives.
The struggles of military members who took their own lives will finally be told by their families at a Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicides.
The Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide is now in session. Please be seated.
Ours is an important task to make a difference to the lives of Defence members and veterans. They are those of us who willingly choose to pursue the mission of the Australian Defence Force, quote, to defend Australia and its national interests in order to advance Australia's security and prosperity.
We're here to learn how and what to do better so that for others facing similar circumstances, death by suicide is not the outcome.
To those affected by suicide, and on behalf of the Royal Commission, I make this promise. We will listen with empathy, we will act with compassion and without fear or favour, and we will learn from your stories in order to make a real difference to the lives of serving and former personnel and their families.
They've worn the uniform, they've done everything we've asked them to do, they've put their life on the line.
This is a wonderful opportunity to try to do something for the ex-diggers.
It's a very big, complex issue that we're exploring.
The ex-cop, the judge and the psychiatrist. The staggering rate of defence suicides has them shocked.
There's been 57 inquiries, more than 700 recommendations, and witness after witness telling the Royal Commission the government and defence have been aware of systemic issues for years.
Private Daniel Garforth, 21, his mother's boy and a father too.
Most of us will be looking forward, to Christmas and events. We don't get to do that anymore. That's all right.
I believe that his PTSD got to a stage where he didn't believe he had an option, that he was in a constant state of suffering.
Terry did not sign up to be abused by her peers and her higher-ups. She did not sign up to be neglected, bullied, ostracised, threatened, physically assaulted, sexually assaulted, or emotionally assaulted. She never saw combat and she was never deployed, yet she still suffered PTSD from the abuse and the culture within the Defence Force.
Where am I at? It's medical negligence, loss of my career, loss of my identity, false timelines created about me that I can prove. But what do I want? I don't want this to happen to anyone else. This has to stop. This is simply leadership. That is all it is.
There's this great tagline they've been using: you enlist the veteran, you keep the family. Show me. Show me you mean that.
To have issues that start in defence through DVA and then into the ESO, it's just abhorrent to have so many people hurting so much and have nowhere to turn, or the places that we turn to do more damage. It's disgusting.
Nobody in defence, in DVA, at a government level, and a lot of the larger ESOs, nobody is doing their best.
To my youngest son, I know you've paid a very, very heavy price for what you had to do to care for me over that period of time. And I know you are still paying the price of that. I thank you sincerely.
2017 is 4.5 years ago, but it's just like yesterday.
Their strength unimaginable, words powerful.
I think we've heard far too many stories from parents who've lost children in the prime of their life, in deaths that should be preventable.
Can I ask you, what would you say to your kids if they wanted to join the Defence Forces now, based on what you've heard?
I don't think I'd oppose my kids joining the military, but I would be urging caution and I'd be giving them a hell of a lot of advice.
And what would that advice be?
To be careful how they interact with people, to be brave and report things that may have run off the rails, not to let them slide, and to have courage to come forward and speak up when things are not right.
It's been those with lived experience of suicide and suicidal behaviour who have bravely come forward and shared their stories with us at public hearings, in private sessions and through written submissions. It is they who have enabled us to shine a bright light on the many complex cultural and systemic issues that are failing serving and ex-serving ADF members and their families. To them, on behalf of the nation, we say thank you, we see you, we hear you and we salute you.
The Royal Commission into Defence and Veterans Suicide has handed down a shocking report describing the despair of our service personnel as a national tragedy. Urgent recommendations have been made in order to save more lives.
Governor-General David Hurley takes possession of some confronting reading.
The rate of veteran suicide in Australia is a national tragedy.
One Royal Commissioner Nick Caldis' draft report says is made worse by a bureaucratic system failing veterans and their families.
13 recommendations contained in the report are detailed, direct and offer concrete solutions.
The first step to fixing a problem is to acknowledge that a problem exists.
I'm aware that there are a lot of veterans out there in the community who still feel a lot of anger and have a lot of distress.
My message to them would be that I would acknowledge their experience and the impact on them of suboptimal practices in the past, and I would want to acknowledge that hurt and distress and apologise for that.
That we recognise that there is a service nexus now, and that is clear to us between an individual's experience and their welfare, both in the service and outside of the service. So we are acknowledging that people have experienced suicidality and died by suicide as a result of their service in the Royal Australian Air Force, and I want to offer an unreserved apology on behalf of the Royal Australian Air Force to them.
We do place our people in challenging, risky and sometimes harrowing environments, and it leaves a mark. We do a good job of trying to rehabilitate physical injuries. We've got to find a better pathway to rehabilitate and manage mental health injury.
As the Chief of the Australian Army, past and present, I offer an unreserved and sincere apology to everyone whom we have failed.
Thank you.
I haven't finished, Commissioner.
Take your time.
I want to thank you for your service and to let you know that your courage will make a difference.
Our people deserve and should rightly expect the wellbeing, support and care they need, both during and after their service. I acknowledge that this has not always been the case and has tragically led to the deaths by suicide of some of our people. I apologise unreservedly for these deficiencies.
But what is actually going to matter is what you recommend and what we ultimately implement. History will be our judge, and I just want the families to know that we are deeply mindful that in all that we do, we will not be able to escape the judgment of history, and we are utterly focused on making sure that this, your work and our response to it results in meaningful change.
How many Defence members and veterans need to kill themselves? This Royal Commission is the line in the sand. Which side of history will our senior leaders be on? We are watching.
Australia has let down its veterans and their families for far too long. Far too many lives have already been lost. As I said at the National Press Club last year, no longer can we allow the preventable deaths of our finest to occur. History will indeed judge those who are in a position to make a difference, and service members, veterans, their families and the future workforce of the ADF will be watching.